welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
Your co-host, Rich Gear, here as well. We have a great guest on us. Doug, you want to introduce?
Well, this is Tom DeRosa.
Tom DeRosa,
Tom DeRosa is with a Creation Studies Institute in South Florida.
Actually, what was it? It's not Fort Lauderdale. It's just north of it, right?
Well, it's Deerfield.
Deerfield, okay.
Deerfield, Florida, which is pretty close to Fort Lauderdale.
And so we're glad to have you join us today because you're going to talk a little bit about your museum that you've had. How many years have you had this open, the museum?
We started in a church, Calvary Chapel in Fort Lauderdale. It was a big church, and the pastor wanted a museum on campus, so we started with this museum in 2005. So 2005, 6. We started with a portable and started to put stuff in that portable, and it became it was right in the parking lot, and everybody came by. It became a very popular spot after church and so on. So we had a lot of fun during that time.
So you've moved since then?
Yes, we actually moved to another location in that Calvary Chapel, and then we moved just recently on a college campus where this is a godsend because you're talking about people who are being trained up, and this is a Christian college, South Florida Bible College and Theological Seminary.
Okay.
And they train up Bible-believing Christians, and they want them to have a good worldview from a biblical perspective. And so they lean on the creation message, and we're so happy to be there. It's just
that's kind of so rare these days. I used to jokingly call seminaries cemeteries, and Bible colleges got to be really terrible. They especially when it comes to the creation message, they really kind of thrown in the towel or just went in the tank, whatever it is. A lot of them are terrible. We have a couple of notable Bible colleges up here in Michigan. We got Calvin College and Hope College. And the theological department, I think, sometimes even worse at Hope College than the science part of it. But they tend to especially Calvin tends to really go into the evolutionary message quite a bit. And thankfully, you have a place where it's a friendly environment for a young Earth creationist position. Now, Doug was telling me was this associated with D. James Kennedy at some point, or?
Yes, our ministry actually was conceived in 1988. And it was through the meeting with Dr. Kennedy that I felt very motivated to follow his cultural mandate. He was very big on getting the gospel out. So he had the ministry evangelism explosion. But he also wanted the culture to be changed. He wanted people to know the truth. And so he was a very staunch six-day creationist, young Earth creationist.
I know he was. I missed the guy. I used to read a lot of his stuff,
Oh, he's great.
Yep.
And he hooked up with Institute of Creation Research,
yep.
Which when I became a Christian, I started to devour all their stuff because I have a science background and I wanted to find out the real answers. And soon,
I was one of them too. I was one of the guys trying to create life in the test tube back in the 60s and 70s, and I didn't get very far with that until I realized that the chemistry wasn't going to let me do that. And that was where I met an early creationist. His name was Dr. John Moore, and he was a professor at Michigan State University.
I remember John Moore very well.
Yeah,
we go back a long time because in the 80s, the creation movement was just starting, and I mean really perpetuating itself and moving out. And Henry Morris and Dwayne Gish came to our church, and we witnessed a debate. I bought so many books.
Yeah,
I felt like I was duped. I felt like somebody really lied to me, and I wanted to get the truth out. So that's how ministry came to be.
It's funny you say that. I remember one time going into a science classroom at Waverly High School. It was a high school I actually went to, and they let me come in at that time to present the creation message. And the teacher said the exact same words. I feel like I've been lied to, because this was back in the Oh boy, this was early 80s. Might have even been in the 70s. My first introduction with Doug really, we got together. Doug brought me actually to the Lord, but I remember reading, devouring the Genesis flood and all those things you could just read. And and the guy said exactly the same thing. By the way, what is your background? You did science? What kind of science background did you have?
My background is in physical science, but I'm a jack of all trades because I taught school. I taught college and I taught high school, and I learned biology, and I became certified in biology. So I have physics and chemistry on one side and then the biology on the other side. And so
that sounds like my background.
Yeah. Double-edged sword, man.
Yeah, I just love it. So I don't get involved like Mike or the rest in the real detailed research. Our ministry is basically educational. And so we're, bringing people out and using the ministry vision or mission, I call it passion, is to reach the world of the truth of creation. And then Creation Studies Institute also is involved in a hands-on ministry educationally, so that we can bring people and make God alive, so they can see that science is, doesn't really defy God. It really supports God. And that's what we have all sorts of trips. The Peace River is where we dig up fossils in Florida, in the Bone Valley area. And we have found so many fossils. That's what you see behind me. You see a lot of fossils we actually dug up, including a herd of mammoths. We have about 4 identified at the tables there.
That one right behind your, I guess it'd be your right shoulder. It looks like a dinosaur, though. You'd say
Deinonychus. Well, we're developing 3 sections right now. The museum has changed. This is the old museum. Right now, we have 3 sections. One section is going to identify catastrophe. We have so many fossils, fish fossils, other fossils, Coelophysis, one of those dinosaurs, reptilian dinosaurs, 6 to 9 feet.
Coelophysis, I'm very familiar with them. I'm a dino guy.
Oh, well, 1,000 of them, right?
Yeah, if I brought out my collection of little models, it would fill this whole table up. I love the dinos. I've loved them since I was a little kid. I remember when I was in first grade, I knew every era, epoch, and eon of the geologic age and the geologic column. And I outsmarted a nun. I went to school in a Catholic school, and I had the right time period. But now I rejected all of it. So what can I say? And I said, well, none of it's right, But yeah, I still love them. I've always loved the dinos and the mammals and what they call prehistoric. Us young Earth creationists realize everything's historic in that sense.
One that's standing up behind, or I guess it's on this shoulder there. There we go. That one behind me on this side is Deinonychus.
Okay, is that how you pronounce it? I always pronounce it Deinonychus. So I probably got it wrong.
No, Deinonychus.
Yeah.
Deinonychus. Deinonychus, we believe, was in Jurassic Park. And I was able to purchase that from Germany, and it's a fleshed out animal, but it's very, very detailed. And in that was the famous dinosaur in Jurassic Park and Jurassic World.
I thought it was Velociraptor.
The Velociraptor was misnamed. They call it Velociraptor.
That's what and somebody finally clarified. I wondered about that.
Yeah, Deinonychus. They don't want to use the word Deinonychus. There were too many pronunciations. So
anyway, probably true.
The raptor basically was Deinonychus, Velociraptor, they're all raptors.
Yes.
And what you saw in the movie is what you see behind me, because it has a retractable claw that stands up.
Yep.
It's got 70 teeth. It's got these very threatening claws, sickle-shaped claws.
Yeah.
And so, you look at this animal and the big feet in the back. Of course, when they build out the model, they make it very muscular. But we can see by the anatomy, particularly where the femur lies and the tibia, they made that kind of thing really, really strong in the back so that it could jump. And the movie really did dinosaurs very well. 1993 Jurassic Park.
Still's
I think
amazing.
they did a great job on the dinosaurs.
Now, you said your museum is in 3 sections. I don't want to get too distracted because we're on the dinos, which is my favorite thing. But what are the 3 sections?
First, you walk in, we have catastrophe. And the reason why we want catastrophe is we want people to see evidence that supports a worldwide flood. And I believe catastrophic evidence is one of the best ways you can see a worldwide flood. We want people to know the Bible is true. So catastrophe to me is a very, very important component because it's realistic. I mean, we have fossil fish all over in this section. And these fossil fish, we have many from Brazil, northeastern part of Brazil, in the Santa Ana Formation. This formation is filled with 25 kinds of fossil fish. And some are eating others. Now we have an assemblage. We have about 15 fish all buried up. And when you look at that, you could say that how did those fish, it's like a fish sandwich. One piles on top of another.
Yeah.
Okay. So you open it up and you see this fish and you see one side, the other side, and it's like perfectly, you could see the bones, you could see all the details. It's a really beautiful sample. And that's what this Santa Ana Formation is made of. So it demonstrates to us a quick burial. That's the only way you can explain it. When you have the fish sandwich, in other words, a fish is covered by sandstone,
Right.
and that sandstone actually hovers over it. So think of sand coming in, and then eventually it will harden over those fish. So that is a catastrophe. Right next to it is the Green River Formation, which we have several fossils that demonstrate a beautiful fish fossil and so on. And if you take a look, let me see if I can do it right. Let's see. No, let's see. This shoulder here, under Creation Studies Institute, is a Silophophus, and that's the one we talked about earlier. The Silophophus is a great example of a quick burial. There were 1,000 of those dinosaurs found, 6 to 9 feet, by the way, and they were all put together, 1,000 of these guys, and so it demonstrates that there was a worldwide flood. The seculars called it a flash flood.
Right. Well, you really get down to, you get the way they describe it. So many of them, they acknowledge they were buried quickly by a flood, but they always make a bunch of local floods rather than acknowledge there was one huge flood. Yep. Yeah.
You come in there, you get the idea that, hey, something happened here. And and then we point to the worldwide flood. So that's part of the storyline.
Okay.
That's the first section. Second section you go in is what our ministry has been about over the years. We in 1988, the ministry was founded, and of course, Dr. Kennedy had a lot to do with it. But he mentored me, he started me off. I know what the cultural mandate. I mean, he was a great supporter of our ministry. So as we moved out, in 1991, we started to do activities because I wanted people to experience God. The teacher in me says, let's have some fun. Let's see God. Let's see God really working. And so we found the Peace River that crosses by an area full of fossils. It's called Bone Valley. And in this Bone Valley, there are thousands upon thousands of mammals that died we believe from quick burial, including the mammoths, giant mammoths that we found in the river in 1996 to 1999. We found a herd of mammoths. We found parts of 4 mammoths. There's a bone, one of the bones we found in 1999. It's tremendous in size. It comes up to my shoulders. So to kind of show you, that's a big bone. I'm almost 6 feet, I'm close to 6 feet, and there's a bone. So when we did the mathematics and we looked at it, we said this mammoth had to be over 17 foot tall.
Wow.
So imagine going to a zoo, okay, and you look at giraffe, that's the mammoth that we're finding in the Peace River.
Wow, I didn't know they were that big. I thought they were like maybe 12. I know they're big, but I was thinking they were like maybe 12, 13, 14.
All over the fossil record during the Ice Age, we see glyptodons or these giant armadillos.
Armadillos, yeah.
Yeah, big. I mean, they were like Volkswagens.
So do you have some of these skeletons in your museum then?
We have the shells of them. We have the
You do?
skeletons of the mammoths. We found so many mammoths. We have bits and pieces of almost lots of animals, including the saber-toothed cat that you could see right behind me, directly behind me. That's a saber-toothed cat's head.
So you do your own excavations then, right?
Yes, we do excavations every year, and we do.
Boy, you need any volunteers?
Yeah, you come and join us. We'll have fun.
Man, I'd love to do that, Doug.
There you go, yeah.
So
So we believe that there was a lot of mammoths, lots of ice age creatures, and we needed a place to store them. That's what started the museum. So in that section, we have that area. And where the Deinonychus is right now, right behind me over here, that Deinonychus is where the dinosaurs are going to be, the dinosaur area. And we have a T-Rex skull and so on. So.
This phosphate, this is a phosphate bed, right? Now, it seems like there was a phosphate bed in South Carolina that was sort of purportedly similar to that, where they had many different types of fossil creatures.
And I was doing some research. I presented a paper at the Creation Research Society, and I was looking at phosphorine is the mineral. My background is a chemistry, so I get a little tickle when I look at that stuff, phosphorine. Anyway, it's how you get the phosphate, the mining for phosphate. It's not the pure phosphate compound we see today, but it's a little derivative of that. But phosphorus is very important. The phosphorus is very important to living things. I mean, our ATP, our energy systems. ATP is an energy system that we have, and so that energy system is going to be part of a living kind of thing. And so, whether it be in plants or animals, you're gonna need that phosphate or around. So that's why it's a fertilizer, and it's great for plants and so on. And, in turn, it became a place for animals to migrate. So I had a picture of a savanna, because they talked about the paleontological reports say that there were savannas here, and we had burns. It would get very hot, dry, and then you have a burn. And then everything that started to become large became small, very similar to what we see in the Great Plains today. So that's how we think of the animals migrating. And I've got this, I need an artist to help me, but I've got this picture in my mind from Lewis and Clark expedition. They went to Montana, and I went to Pompey's Pillar and went all the way up. Clark went up that pillar, and he looked down, and in his diary, he said, "All I see is elk. I see elk, I see buffalo, I see so many animals." And he just underlined it in his, like, this is a emphasis point. This was unbelievable to see all those creatures. That's what I think happened here in Florida, in the central part of Bone Valley is where I think a lot of these animals have migrated and stayed. Yeah, from Michigan and so on.
Wow.
And so there was probably a major climate change shift in the population of these creatures.
So is this area going to be, you're talking about the Ice Age a little bit here or not?
Yeah, the Ice Age is going to be in that major area, and right behind me on this side, you can see the bones on the table. Now they have a special place now. They're being put in the site.
Okay.
That's kind of how we found these bones. We dug them up, and we found femurs, big legs of mammoths. We found humeruses, and they were when we started to find them, the complete jaw, the tusk, the legs were pristine. I mean, you don't find fossils very much that are articulated, and big, because most times, they're worked over and you get small bits and pieces of bone. In this case, we were blessed by God, and so that's why we decided to have a museum.
Wow.
And the third part of your museum is the dinosaurs, correct?
Yes. And we wanted to have a part where we concentrate on the dinosaurs. They're very popular, and everybody, God says in Job, look, chief amongst my ways in Job chapter 40, look, chapter 40:15, it says, look at the behemoth, which eats grass like an ox. He was made along with you. So I look at that and I said, wow, what a testimony. And then I don't know if you caught in Jurassic Park, but there's a picture, 1993, of a Brachiosaurus standing on its hind legs.
Yeah. Wasn't that a Brachiosaurus, though?
Yeah, I think it was a Brachiosaurus standing on its hind legs.
Might have been Brachiosaurus, yeah. Yeah.
It's sort of like it's sort of like petroglyph that we saw at the Natural Bridges National Monument, which possible that the Native Americans saw them because they depicted. There's actually there's one very distinct petroglyph, but the one next to it is pretty good.
Yeah, that is more like a brontosaurus, or if you will, a patasaurus. I've heard they're trying to get the name brontosaurus back in. You know,
Actually, they have, I think.
yeah, I think they have too, because I like that name better than a patasaurus. I just never liked that name, but it's for the laws of nomenclature. It was named first or whatever. But yeah, there was more of a brontosaur type of a creature, and it wasn't on his hind legs. He had four legs, just like the traditional pose. His neck kind of came up and looked back at you, and the tail coming down, and it's a petroglyph.
Testimony in Job in chapter 40, it talks about the Jordan River being displaced.
Right.
And the Brachiosaurus had, I don't know if you caught the movie in 1993, but the Brachiosaurus had his nostrils sticking up.
Yeah,
So I'm
right at the
saying,
top of his
wow.
head.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm saying, gee, this has to, of course I wasn't there. Joe was there. But
Well, I also like the other one. There's speculation of Leviathan. He's kind of a cool looking, kind of want to describe to Job as well. You know, and we've talked about that on our show from time to time. The outrageous idea that even though it's a poetic book, he's describing real things, you know. And he said this creature seems to be breathing fire. And then, you know, we talk about things, which have been a lot of creation books. The Bombardier Beetle, which has two chemicals that mix together and comes out at 275 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, and then who would think that, and yet if they mix together inside their body, Doug could tell you the actual name of the chemicals. You probably could too. I'm the art guy. He's the science guy, you know. So anyway, but I thought of like a lot of these, you know, Parasaurolophus or Parasaurophilis, however Dwayne gets parts of, you know, has chambers up above their head that some of the duckbills and or maybe it was a swimming creature. We don't know, but it actually, the idea that it could have actually breathed fire is an amazing thought until you think, well, you got snakes that swim in water called electric eels. You got creatures down below the thing that glow in the dark. You got a Bombardier Beetle whose butt lights up, you know. I'm sorry. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And who would think any of that, and yet the light is cool. All of this is amazing stuff that if we didn't see it, we probably have the same skepticism that there could be a reptilian creature that could breathe fire. And yet all of our medieval legends, many, or not all, but so many of them talk about fire-breathing dragons, you know. So Leviathan is one of those, I speculate what kind of a creature was it really. I think the behemoth, you're more on, it's either a brachiosaurus or a subsauropod type creature, you know, that seems to be pretty up. But the Leviathan's a little trickier, you know, but it's still.
Leviathan they describe in chapter 41, and they talk about the shield it had and all. I did an article in our newsletter about it, and it was one of the first dinosaurs that they found, by the way, you know, the Leviathan or whatever. But I I thought about this fire-breathing dragon, and I started to think. I said, as you were mentioning earlier, that we have the Bombardier Beetle, we have electric eel that can give you 500 volts, straight volts of DC that can kill you. I mean, straight on. So that is a big charge. And so when you think about it, how did they stack their cells up? They actually stack like a battery. They line them up, and the cells actually have the electricity to produce that.
Wow.
And then you think of the luminescence that you see when a little firefly comes by.
Yep.
It makes you wonder, because biology has its own beauty and it has its own intricacy. And that's what I started to think about with dinosaurs. I said, could it be possible with T-Rex's head being so large, and yet it had lots of vacuum of space in it? A lot of these large animals like mammoths and so on have a lot of vacuum of space, but in this case, it had like holes. I mean, you could actually look at the skull and you could see the holes right in the skull. And so I started to think, is it possible they could have taken oxygen in? Very important to have fire. You need oxygen. Combustion reactions would have to take place. So you have to combustible material inside and is able to exhale, blow out that fire. This is just kind of a crazy idea, but when you look in terms of biology and what you mentioned earlier, that it's been mentioned all over the place, all over, we have history upon history and data saying that there were fire-breathing dragons. One would have to conclude that that's not a hard feat to do in biology.
Well,
considering all the different feats that the biology does in other ways.
yeah, and the chemical processes in living systems, who knows? But
we only have a couple more minutes, but I'd like you to describe what you think the future of your museum might be in the next few years.
Well, our collection is going to increase, so we're going to need more space.
always.
I mean, I can tell you that 33,000, we actually reduced, Doug, we reduced the size of our office space, and I have everybody squeezed. I even got out of there so we could have more museum space. But I am excited because the president of the college and staff are excited to have us there. And so if we can proclaim the message, I think we'll be able to expand it and move it to places where, we're in a great location. Before we're kind of buried, but here there's a big road that goes connecting two big interstate highways, and we have signage on the building now, right next to South Florida.
Oh, great!
Right there.
And so you'll be open. You're open now. Is that?
We're open on Saturdays. We, if anybody checks our website, and if they're in the area, they can call. And we do have, if we can arrange it, we'll give tours by appointment. And so we've done that too.
Yeah, unfortunately, our museum is closed.
Yeah, our museum is closed. I've done museum work for 30 years and doing the artwork for the museum, and I'm sitting at home doing Photoshop all day long.
Yeah, we'll see you next time on Revolution Against Evolution, and thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.